Whitewashing aside, let's talk about how the live action Ghost in the Shell rinsed the essence of a completely good storyline to appeal to who? Everyone who did not read the manga, everyone who did not watch the 1995 anime, and everyone who did not watch the 2 seasons of the television standalone series. The problem with the Ghost in the Shell is that it missed appealing to its targeted audience, the fans. Also, a man marries a robot, and how that might be a good thing. My main dish for this week are memories, evidence of a soul. The problem with Ghost in the Shell is that it didn't appeal to its targeted audience, the fans. It's evidence that if you don't get it right with the fans, then in all likelihood, your movie might not do so well once it's released. Okay, first you leak this of Scarlett Johansson. It's kind of like that thing that they did with Wolverine Origins, where they introduced Gambit. And everyone saw Gambit. They saw Taylor Hirsch as Gambit, and they thought, what WTF? And that's the same effect that image of Scarlett Johansson, that profile of her. That's the same reaction people had to seeing her staring into this glass, looking pensively forward. And it was all the outrage. But at that point, you had already cast a woman. You had already started production, so you can't go back and make any changes. Only thing you could do now is defend your choice of choosing someone who does not represent the nationality of the person represented within the previous iterations of the storyline. So then you just go on an excuse tour. Well, we have to do this. And then you saw all these things come out like, well, we did this. We made this choice. Scarlett Johansson should be tough. Scarlett Johansson comes out to me. Well, this is about feminism. This is about women. This is about how Hollywood doesn't employ women, and why should we, I don't know, she says something like that, something about feminism. And yes, it's cool to see more women in films. However, it does not correlate, or it does not in any way substantiate their choice of choosing her. The only thing that happened with this movie is that they chose a star because they needed a star to sell the film. I think there was a comment where the director, I wish I could quote him, so I'm not going to quote him directly, right? But someone who is a producer or the director of the film made a statement that if we don't cast her, this movie don't get made. And he had it right. The movie doesn't get made if you don't cast her. Why? Because there are so many dollars invested into making this movie viable. They went on the defensive. Spent all this time trying to defend a movie instead of focusing on getting the story right. Then it's going to come out wrong. And that's what happened with this movie. Scarlett Johansson was fine. She's a fine actor. But if the material is not good, if the storyline isn't well plotted or structured, then it's going to affect her performance. Even if she plays it tight-knit, if you write a stupid story or give somebody stupid lines to say, even if they play it like Meryl Streep in anything that she does, then it's going to come out and sound stupid. And that's what happened with this movie. It's not to say it was a huge failure because it did some numbers, but yes, it was a huge failure because you're basing it on box office numbers. They took a gamble. Let's cast this woman and let's get this story wrong. And see if people will like it. See, if you appeal to the fan base, this is my defense. If you appeal to the fan base, the people who really want to see the movie, who would really be interested in seeing the movie, then that's where your word of mouth happens. That's what gets people into the seats. Let's look at Disney. When they started releasing images of Iron Man, when that first movie debuted, start releasing images of Captain America looking all fly. Start releasing images of, let's say, currently, the new one, when they had like everyone, like they didn't even have an image of, they just had people standing around a set of Infinity War, and then people get excited. It gets the people going. They are appealing to the fan base because they know that the fandom is strong, especially when you're trying to remake something. Disney won't make a Beauty and the Beast and totally change everything from what you saw in the movie. No, what they did is they gave you Beauty and the Beast. New Force Awakens. Instead of changing the context, the formula of Star Wars, what did they do? They gave you basically Star Wars in a different movie that was made 20, 30 years later, like almost 25 years later. It just basically gave you a remade version of that. Why? To launch the series again. Never underestimate the fan base. Let's give a scenario. Whereas they release an image of an unknown actress, somebody that we don't know, playing, oh, good Lord, Kira. I think that's her name that they gave her in this movie. Instead of Major Makoto, it's Major Kira. I think they probably would have let you go on that one, but that's probably one of those sound bites that they had to change up, like post recordings. Like, let's go in here and change up her name because we don't want to give Scarlett Johansson a Japanese name because that'll just enrage everyone even more so. Which wasn't the case. They would have just been mad, period, because the movie was flawed and it started with the casting. However, let's present that scenario. You cast someone unknown, someone for this role. Even if she wasn't perfect, they would have just excused it. And she's playing this character. And then you release some set footage of like maybe the little cloaking suit that they have. Boom. Next thing you know, you have nice word of mouth coming out of there. It's like, okay, we got this young person, we got this young lady here playing this role of Ghost in the Shell. Okay, she looks halfway decent, but look at that suit. That suit is awesome. How did they do that? Then next thing you know, you have a positive word of mouth going. It's that simple. But instead, we got the latter. Now, I'm not going to say that this movie was horrible because it wasn't. If you look at it, the movie is beautiful. It was the special effects were designed by Weta. You know, the company. Who is that? Is that Guillermo del Toro's? No, it's the brothers who did the Matrix. The sisters who did the Matrix. Their production company did this movie, and so that special effects company is awesome. If you've seen a lot of the stuff that they've done in the past, they are rivaling. They are up there with Industrial Light and Magic. In the actual creation of the cityscape of a futuristic Japan, and this is like way in the future, and this was a city besought by immigrants, by crime. The city was supposed to tell a story of a separation between classes, people with money and people without money. This was lightly touched on in the 1995 movie, but later explained in the Standalone Complex, this television series. You have this dystopian society that is flourishing organic technology, being able to replace body parts, body reconstruction, like a sign of the times. And not the Harry Styles song. If you want to know a good one, go back and listen to Prince's song back in 1997, I believe. It's a sign of the times that the plethora of reconstructive surgery that goes on, useless reconstructive surgery. Some of it is used in a good manner, in a good way, in a way that helps the person who is suffering. But a lot of this is cosmetic. In this society, you can get things cosmetically done. And you have scientists experimenting with furthering that advancement of people. Hence, wherein comes in a Major Makoto, where now she is a full body android. I would say android or cyborg, where her entire body is robotic, but then her mind is organic. So then you enter in this conversation about preserving the human mind and the body of something foreign. Is that person really a person? Is that thing really a person if it only has mind? Now, does that necessarily mean you have a soul? Now, what this movie is struggling with, this character, Makoto, was having a feeling. She didn't know what was going on with her because she was exhibiting feeling of something else. Another thing I would like to touch upon is that they missed out on an opportunity they presented but did not explore, where you see Makoto, she's out in the streets just walking around searching for something, and she encounters this young lady that's standing outside this building, and you would assume that it's sort of like that she is a hooker and she's standing out there advertising herself. Next scene, you see Makoto and her inside a bedroom, and Makoto's just, or Kira, Kira is just studying her features and asking her why. Like, how does it feel? How does it feel to be you, to be human? Are you full human? And it is sensuous, but to the point where she doesn't touch her, she doesn't do anything. It's all about the way she's looking at her with curiosity, with a romanticism. And in that moment, you kind of see where this character, Kira Makoto Major, is coming from studying. She wants to know, how does this person feel who has a mind and a body as one? And it's almost, it's almost like a love scene. And it's very romantic. They didn't touch her. She didn't have a kiss or anything like that, which is stupid. It's like, come on, just show it. Go ahead with it. If you're going to present this narrative, go through with it. It's not that, you're trying to say, oh, like, this person's a lesbian. Why am I? You're not trying to say that. This woman is having an experience, and she wants to experience it with this young lady. It's not to say that that she has a preference or anything, and I think they maybe cut that scene because they were already dealing with the fact that Scarlett Johansson in the role of a Japanese woman. And on top of that, we don't want to deal with the lesbian, narrative. We don't want them to say that, we made Makoto a lesbian. No, they didn't do that because she has no preference. That's the thing. She's curious because she doesn't know how necessarily to feel about anything. And they missed an opportunity there in that moment to really touch on that. Not by like showing a love scene or anything, but by examining her confliction via those types of story elements in the Standalone Complex. There was an instance in the actual television show in an episode where she's biting her nails or fidgeting with her nails. Something that's very humanistic. And her partner, Bako, he was watching her like, you're different. And this scene was one of those scenes that could have really served the purpose. But in the end, it kind of didn't. And that's basically in the movie. 1995 movie. You have it all there laid out. Do what Disney does. Just remake the entire damn thing the same way they saw it before. Just now it's live action. Coming up to the actual opening sequence where you have the construction of Makoto's body, and it's this just very streamlined robotics. Everything looks light. Everything looks seamless. But then you have Scarlett Johansson lumbering around here like a damn lumberjack. Could be the bomber jacket that maybe it gives her a stature that's larger than she should be. She just looks bulky, like she's stomping around like a robot. And that was either a poor acting choice on her part, and or the director or somebody else said, hey, that would be a good idea if you tried it this way, that they kind of signed off on. Thinking the logic was that, she is a robot. Let's see, she should be lumbering around. She can't just be walking around all wispy. I think that's the name, not whiskey. She can't be walking around here because she's supposed to be tough. No. If you watch any of the anime and stuff, this could be, her body movements were fluid. The way they portrayed it in this movie, she's bulky, she's walking around, boom. And she didn't seem like she was at one with her body at all. But in the actual context of the series, she has already been there. She's been with Section 9 for years now, for some time now. She's aware and she's moving with quickness and finesse of a trained soldier. Also introduced into this movie was the story of Kuze. Kuze was a story from the Standalone Complex, Season 2, Gig 12. Kuze is described as a leader akin to Martin Luther King and Gandhi, where he stressed liberation without violence. In this storyline, it involves a lot of present day political and social issues. So you have immigrants, this is coming off of the Fourth World War, and you have immigrants, I think from Russia and other surrounding countries, wanting to enter this technology advanced city that is now Japan. Japan has exceeded the United States and Russia for dominance in technology and worldly affairs. And you have this immigration problem. Kuze represented was someone who wanted to bring attention to the transgressions placed upon the people by the government, to make information accessible to everyone what the government is doing to the people. In this movie, they use Kuze as antagonist who comes in and he wants to bring light to this major corporation and what they're doing to people. So they tried to do Puppet Master and then mix in with this Standalone Complex series, and they mended them together in a horrible way. Because one storyline is totally different from the other one. One was philosophical. The other one was wrapped in philosophy/political espionage. They tried to mash them together. And that's when they messed it up, because it just doesn't make sense. Kuze had a very important role in this storyline. They addressed it a little bit here. The relationship, I know you, you know me. This relationship between Makoto, or Kira, in this movie and Kuze, it's just dumbed down. They didn't have the time to really explain what was going on, what truly happened between Makoto and Kuze, and where their histories had crossed paths in the past. It's a beautiful storyline. It really is. And the thing is, it didn't really distract from the storyline, the Standalone Complex storyline. It didn't prove a distraction, whereas you have a love story going on there. You had a struggle for these humanoids or bots, cyborgs, whatever you want to call them, coming to a realization of memories they possessed long ago, memories that they don't understand, memories or a soul that they once had. See, and so now we're going to go into my main disc. I'm just going to transition into that. Now, with that being introduced, our memories, evidence of a soul. Look at what Standalone Complex, what's that the Kuze storyline, what touched upon, and what the 1995 Ghost in the Shell presented to us. Can technology have a soul? What if you were able to put a mind into a body like they do in this movie? And there is a context there. Mind, body, and soul. Are they congruent? Are they the same? But what if our soul was basically our memories of our life? Okay, in this movie, they actually take it in the live action movie. They take this context and they put it in the form to they put it in a different way. A lot of people say they use this as a way to explain why Makoto, or Kira, is a Caucasian woman. Young Japanese girl was placed into this body, which, okay, I can do that. I can see that. But we already know that you messed up when you cast Scarlett Johansson. So now you try to go in and you change the narrative a little bit to make it seem that you were conscientious of the decision you made in your casting, to maybe appease everyone who was angry at the fact that they cast this woman in this role. People didn't believe it was meant for her. In the past, there has been some examination of Japanese appropriation of white culture represented in certain aspects of their arts. Let's say anime. Some people question, like, oh, this person doesn't look this ethnic enough, and that they carry white tendencies. So if you look at some of the anime and the blonde hair and some of the blue eyes and all these little things like that, there has been some questions raised on that matter, but it doesn't really carry any weight here. So let's not go into it. It doesn't matter. So let's skip it. Okay, if man isn't evolving, so what's the next stage of evolution? Some say technology is the next step for us, for mankind, for humankind. Technology would be the next step. That our minds, our bodies, everything will become technology. As we deplete the earth and the earth continues to maybe change in such a way or a cataclysmic event happens, whereas humans can't exist in the forms that we do now. I present to you a movie that came out a year ago, Chappie. I like this movie for the ending. I enjoyed the movie overall. It was enjoyable. Come on, people. You might not like it. Just entertain the thought and then just go with it. But I'm about to spoil it for you. So if you're gonna watch it, so I'm sorry. Well, at the end, we have a situation where a mind is transferred into the memory base of a machine, a robot, consequently saving the soul of the person whose shell or body is now no longer an inhabitable, sort of like transferring your soul to a different things. If you go to Buddhism, whereas they say once you die, you become energy and you can reincarnate as something else. What are you actually taking with you? That's your energy. That's a different transcendence into a being that is into energy, whereas you become part of the universe. But what if your soul are your memories? And so if you're able to, right before you die, transfer your soul into something else, like say my computer laptop right now, I will be able to exist as that laptop. That laptop, this machine becomes me. Do I believe that you would be able to communicate with me? Yes, because we're in the future. And as we go further into the future, machines will be able to communicate with humans. We'll find a way to do so. So with my memories installed in this computer, would that be evidence of my soul's transference into a different body, into a different thing? Or is my soul completely separate from that? Because you can question that through my memories and through everything that I know, am I being able to converse with you via information that I am still alive? I think you could look at Lawnmower Man as well, where he becomes energy. Is that his soul? Possibly, yeah. Chucky. I'm sorry. I'm going to go with Chucky. Or Possessions. Possessions, like Ghost, the movie. Patrick Swayze. Now, do I believe that? I don't know. I think because being a sci-fi, I wouldn't say geek or enthusiast, I just like to question those things because you never know. Why not question the things that you don't know? Because it does make sense if we are a robot, if we can be preserved in a robotic form and our memories, our brains, or like Ghost in the Shell, are taken and put into a body, I become that thing, right? That would mean I was able to transfer my soul into this thing, because that thing, that vessel, that body, that shell is now keeping my mind alive, keeping me alive, so that I can technically continue to live. That would be my transcendence. If not into energy, we could transcend into information. Or now you're going into Matrix territory. And that's where the question and the puppet master and all these, the Ghost in the Shell philosophy comes in. Your body, this organic thing that we have, you transfer it to another entity, you become that body. And people might look at you and might see a robot, but you are that thing. You become that body, you become that thing. It might take you a while to adapt to it, just like anything else. Your mind is out of your body. So it would give you a ghost-like feeling. Having your mind out of your body is like a ghost-like feeling where you have something possess you, a ghost-like figure coming into your body, taking over, moving everything else out. Like, I don't need you here. You stay away for a little bit because I'm going to commandeer this body because I got something to do. Your ghost are your memories, your soul. What makes you alive? I can go real deep there. What makes us alive? You can ask that question. Now, if you're not religious, and I'm addressing this in a non-secular subtext. If you are religious, then, totally different argument. I was talking to somebody who is religious, and he was talking about the transcendence. What if we all just become energy? What if your soul is just a body of energy? You become one with the universe. That would explain a lot. And that kind of borderlines Buddhism of sorts. I think, don't quote me on that because I do not study Buddhism. Scarlett Johansson in Lucy, when she played that role, where she just became energy. She became energy into which she could exact and transfer information from place to place to place to maybe stop things from happening, or to be there when things do happen, or to give people the information that they need to further help humankind in the future. So you have many different scenarios going there. But my thing is, like, if you lose that part of yourself, then what are you? Okay, let's take another movie, Ex Machina. Being this cyborg, this robotic being that's born in a lab, created in a lab, never took a step outside. And so the test is to bring in someone from the outside to relate with her and see how she reacts. It becomes part of the storyline that she wants more. She's knowledgeable. She knows more. But does that make that thing have a soul? Does she have a soul? Is she living? If she has feelings, it becomes this strange game of chess where the creator challenges her to prove that she's alive. He wants to be able to prove that fact, because that would be the great advancement of his theory. But she does something else where she starts, it's a total mind scrambler where you think that maybe she is exhibiting feelings. Well, she is, because she becomes cunning, through all the language, the repetitiveness, and through learning. This computer learns to think for herself. If you, instead of like Ghost in the Shell, when you have a brain put it into a body, but if you have like a complete robotic structure who is able to evolve to the point that she could feel now, then in his eyes, that was a defunct unit. Wouldn't that be the success, is to create a being that can fully think and act for itself? Man and creation in our current state of evolution, we may have stopped evolving, but we are creating something else that could later replace us. That movie proposes an interesting construct of creativity. Will we now pretend to be God and create? If you study a lot of the Bible or religion, sin is our greatest error. But we were formed in the image of our Creator, of our God. So therefore, it's us who brought the evil upon ourselves. If you think of it in a way that was constructed, Ex Machina, the movie, the creator created a robot who could think, and that was the error. That was the dysfunction of that prototype, that unit. So it had to be destroyed because it had self-thought. And if you do think about religion, if you put that into the context of religion and sin and the decisions we made, or if you follow the Bible, the decision Eve made to eat that apple, or to convince Adam to eat that apple, then we bring unto ourselves the errors of mankind by existing with the ability or power of thought. It's totally weird, but it's a great movie if you want to sit there and you think about it and go into the real. It's like one of those things that could be or should be a college course, to go in there and actually think about that movie in the context of religion and the Bible and God in our universe. And so we can't really go too far from that. So a lot of this sci-fi, that's what they examine. They examine a lot of religion, because based in sci-fi is a huge religious element. So you can't really ignore religion when you're talking about science, although some people would like to. But, it really adds to our evolution of thought, and how might we be able to continue existing through some form of creation. I was actually reading a story in Wired magazine called The Black Book. About a family who has this memory chip implanted into their daughter's brain. And upon her death, maybe unexpectedly, maybe not, they would be able to view her life as seen through her eyes. I thought that was a beautiful narrative by author Malka Older. Being able to store your memories is the idea, but it's what you want to do with those memories which creates the narrative. How do you deal with being recorded all the time? And she presented this scenario where this young lady, Sumi, was young and dealing with this fact. She was welcome to it at a young age. And then once she grew older, she was a little bit more reluctant to the idea of her life changes being recorded through this device. And upon her death, or just when her parents decide that they want to look, can enter into her memories and see what she's been experiencing. Into later on in life, wanting to preserve more of herself. So the story was more about longevity of life and legacy than just the ability of science to record memories and store them away. How alive are we necessarily when we hold technology responsible for our lives? We are a sum of our memories. That is if you don't believe in, other life or where you're going after this. But right now, if you think about now, your memories are a huge part of you, because we can function as human beings. Just being a human is fine, doing human things, going about our daily lives, but it's our memories that make us into people and who we are. It influences our future, our present, and our past. Entertain that for your food for thought for this weekend, or for whatever dinner party you're going to. If you're going to a sinus party or something like that, you could take that with you and enjoy it. So now you start thinking like, so mind, body, and soul are your memories evidence of a soul? I would say so, because you have to believe that if you die, you take with you all your memories, or don't you? Or do they just die with your brain? This organic thing. Maybe that's what they mean by when they say, I saw my life flash before my eyes. Whereas at that moment of panic, all your memories, everything is downloading. All that information is downloading from your brain because it knows it's in a state of panic. So like when your mind gets a virus and your computer gets a virus, and whatever that virus is start downloading all types of information, and you're trying to stop it. Stop. But you can't. What if that is your mind in that state of panic when you have those near-death experiences? When people say, I saw my mind flash before my eyes, that's basically your brain downloading all the information to you that you've stored there your entire life. Somehow you're able to download it upon your death or at death into a computer or something, a hard drive, that then can later be pressed into a brain of a computer with a body. Maybe you do become that one. Maybe then your memories become your soul, because now with you in that body, that structure, well, I'll say that body, then you become that thing. Well, it's pretty deep there, but I'm gonna get off that subject. So if you guys like any of that, I would say just go and watch those movies. Those are my movie recommendations. If you're going to watch Ghost in the Shell, go watch Ex Machina, and go watch Lucy as well, because as outrageous as it may seem of a movie that it was portrayed to be, by critics, it's actually a pretty good film. It has a good narrative to it when it's talking about information about humans in this age of technology. What is our evolutionary status right now, as of now? And also, Chappie, frowned upon again, but it has a narrative. That's what I'm saying. Like, when you watch a movie, it might not just be as cut and paste as just ugly on screen, or this is a failure of a movie. Just sometimes wrapped into the essence of the film is a great narrative. I encourage everyone to just do that. Just look into the narrative of the film, and you'll get more from a film than that. Some movies, yes, are just stupid, but a lot of it is based on a common storyline and or idea. So take that idea and just examine it more. And you might get more from a stupid film by just examining the core of it. And maybe it was executed horribly, but you can extract something else from it through conversation, through talking, through this podcast. Okay, so now let's go on to another part of this main dish. I have another story for you, and it's all about a man who hacked his own brain. This is by Dan Einberg in the science category of Wired magazine online. The neurologist who hacked his own brain and almost lost his mind. And this is about Phil Kennedy. He was a neurologist who put electrodes into the mind of a locked-in patient. And if you don't know what a locked-in patient is, it's someone who, through the means of whatever, like through maybe some type of trauma, the body has shut down. So the body is basically useless, but their mind is still going. Now, think about that in the context. If you have a locked-in patient, you could take his mind and put it into something else. How crazy would that be? And or try to tap into his mind so that he can use computers to help them move their limbs. Whatever trauma caused them to become that way, either through disease or a physical event, caused their bodies to shut down. Their brains no longer connects with the neurons or the muscles in their body, because it's all just information being transferred down. Think your brain says, hey, I need this finger to move. Hey, talking to this microphone, move your lips, blah, 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 blah. It's all information being controlled by your brain. With these locked-in patients, he was able to put electrodes into the brain of Johnny Ray, a 50-year-old drywall contractor and Vietnam veteran who suffered a brain stroke at the base of his brain. See, this man just had a natural occurrence that just happened to him. It was traumatic, and so it shuts down his body. Phil Kennedy was able to do was put electrodes into his brain. This man was able to control a computer cursor with using only his brain. That was like almost the peak of his success. So back in 2015, after he did the one thing that a lot of people say that you don't do, is that you use yourself as the test subject. And back in 2015, he went to Belize where he had a neurosurgeon named Cervantes. He paid $30,000 to have this guy install cone electrodes into his brain. And at first, Cervantes was scared because Kennedy lost speech. He lost everything. He was non-coherent and he couldn't speak, and he wasn't fully in charge of his motor functions. After some time, they figured out that it was just the swelling of the brain and that they had to wait. And so they waited like a month or so, or 2 months. And then after 2 months, Kennedy slowly started to regain speech. He began talking and conversing with them. And so they were able to conduct tests. After a certain period of time, those tests became null and void because certain cells died off and certain electrodes wouldn't work. And I think there was an infection or something. And so they had to take the electrodes out. They had to go back into surgery again and have them taken out. And he never actually went back after that. And actually they told him, like, you can't do this yourself. You can't do this again to your body, or you will irreparably damage your brain. Now you have this man who he sacrificed his body for this notion, for this idea that you can have your brain connected to a computer and be able to control that computer. So if you think about that one in the form of the ghost in the shell, you take your brain, you put it into the body of a computer or a cyborg unit. And if you're able to, you can move your arm, move this, you can move your body. And a lot of that is now. And that was basically, he started his study back in 1998. By now, they have those things in function where there are people who can control their prosthesis with just their mind, using their mind. They're able to do this without going into the brain, tearing open people's scalp and having to go there and put electrodes in. They were able to do this in a more or less traumatic way. He believes now that he still has the idea for it, that it will still happen, but now, like, everything else is more streamlined. Everything is smaller, that you can fit into people's brains. That if you saw his apparatus, it's this like huge thing sticking out the side of his head. It was like totally like Frankenstein-y. So it's possible as we further evolve technology, we might be able to help us in our where humans just stop evolving. We're not really getting better. We just, we hit a plateau. the next form of creation that comes our way. But we don't know what that is yet. It could be robotic, could be alien, it could be it could be organic. We see species nowadays. There are species being introduced to nature that we haven't seen before, that we haven't in all these years, and that could have just actually evolved from something else. We don't know. It's very curious. You start questioning all these things. Well, Patrick Kennedy fully believes that in the future we're going to have the ability to control computers with our mind. And now you introduce Skynet into the factor, or something version of it. Like, what if we start evolving to that point where we can attach our computers, start controlling computers with our mind, but then we made the computers smart enough that they figure out how to control us via our minds. This, that, and the other. We have a Chinese doctor, a Chinese scientist. What is he? He's a Chinese engineer. He built a robot at the end of last year, and he married that robot. He recently married that robot to shut up his friends and family who's telling this 31-year-old success that he needs to get married. Cool, man creates robot, wife. That's almost like your perfect scenario, right? If you watch Ex Machina, never trust anything grown in a lab. That's all I'm saying. I'm just going to throw that quote out there. Well, I wanted to think about, okay, since his family and stuff were pressuring this man to get married, I want to give you 3 advantages to having a wife bot. Somebody that you created in the lab. Number 1 reason why a wife bot would be ideal. Good listener. She will listen to you. She will listen to your crazy ass idea. She'll listen to you talk about your day and not give you that duh look like, oh, good Lord, please shut up, get away from me type thing. If you ever talk to your wife or something about something that you feel passionate about that they have no clue or could care less about, is one of the most terrific things to see somebody actually do. When you're staring at them, if they're good communicators, then they'll stare at you. They'll look you in your eye. But yet you can see almost past their eye and into their little brains, and as if it were a cartoon, and you would see them little mouses running on their little treadmill, like, what? And then the mouse stops. What the hell is he talking about? Like, I am not interested right now. Or they're thinking about taking a shower tomorrow. Or like, hey, what am I going to work out? What am I wearing? And so, yes, good listener. Well, a robot would be a good listener because she'll just sit there and look at you. Unless you program her to ignore you, then she's going to be a good listener. Number 2, dinner for one. I don't have to feed her. I'm still me. I'm still me. I don't have to feed a robot. I don't have to worry about her thinking like, oh, why don't you cook every now and then? Or why don't you do this? And I don't have to take her out to dinner and be like, oh, what would you like, honey? And she's like, what would you like? What would you like? What would you like? No, you don't have to do that because the robot does not want to eat noodles with you. She doesn't want to eat spaghetti. She doesn't want to eat anything. She just wants to be there with you. She's just going to be there with you as companion. Someone who's just there, so you don't really have to have that awkward talk about what do you want for dinner. Because what do you want for dinner? What do you want for dinner? I don't know. What do you want for dinner? Well, I was thinking about this. Okay, then let's get that. No, but it's not what you want. But it's what you want. But I don't want you to get what I want. It's WifeBot is good for that dinner decision. Okay, for that awful dinner decision. Like if it's just 2 people, just you and somebody else, and you guys don't really have a set structure, you actually care what the other person thinks or about what you have for dinner. Some people are just like, hey, this is what you have. Take this plate and get on about your business. Sometimes you have that, but if you have that, but it's always when you want to go out and you try to decide what you want to eat. That's the problem that you're trying to avoid here. That's the problem you avoid with WifeBot. Okay. Oh, this is a total fuck you to your moms. You telling me to get married? I'm going to get married to my robot wife. And so you have nothing to say about it. And you know how they say, moms, that you marry your mother? Ha! I programmed her to be the total opposite of you. So I don't have to marry my mama. So if you don't like her, then you don't like yourself. F you to his mom and his family. He's smart. You got to get married. You got to go do this. And you're like, I don't want to. I spend most of my time in a lab. I spend most of my time with this wife bot, with this robot that I created. So No, I'm sorry. I don't want to get married. I'm basically married to her. And that's the statement that he's saying. I'm married to my job. And so instead of making a woman suffer with my absence of not being there emotionally or and physically anything, I would rather spend my time perfecting this thing that I created and spending most of my time with her. Ha to you, ha to dad, ha to everybody. I just created my own wife and I'm gonna go live and be happily ever after. I don't know if it's actually legal, but I think he's trying to like get some kind of legal thing. But I think it's just the gesture that he did it. Like, hey, I did this and it's going to be, I don't care if it's law or whatever, but I got married. So ha on all of you, especially you, Ma. I'll see you over there snickering. You don't want to come to my wedding? That's okay. I don't care. I married a robot. His mom's just sitting there crying like, my son is a weirdo. But this man is smart. He knows he's going to invest a lot of time with this robot. So why not sacrimoniously marry her and just put forth the statement that, hey, my life is my work. This is my work. And so now she is my life.